Is it time for Aidan Mahaney's arrival? You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and is a big fan of the Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free in the App Store or Google Play. Well, is it time to focus on who's the better fit? With this chaotic and ridiculous transfer portal, I am focusing my attention on this Friday morning to Aidan Mahaney. This is part and parcel with the fact he's likely cheaper. He has 2 years left of eligibility between Aiden and Koby Brea. The two kids who are visiting this weekend. Aidan Mahaney is likely finishing up his visit today. Koby will be starting his visit tomorrow. But Mahaney reminds me of a carbon copy with some caveats. So maybe not exactly a carbon copy, but close. Kind of the plan B of the two. That's more what I'm speaking to. It's not, their games are similar. They started maybe not exactly where they wanted to be, but St. Mary's is a really solid program. Mahaney reminds me of that Cam Spencer where we're all kind of focusing our attention to Koby Brea and the same way we were doing with Nick Timberlake, and Cam Spencer was the pick. I think it's how it's being perceived by the fans. I think Koby has the flashier game. He's bigger. He shoots it at a better percentage. He's a New York kid. And then there's Aiden, a California kid. Smaller, scrappier, more of the underdog, a little more under the radar. The type of kid fans would really relate to, in my opinion. And honestly, maybe that's the type of Dan Hurley is drawn to. Guys who are a little off, like him. Don't take that as any slight. Dan himself is certified psycho, should be fit for a straight jacket, and Dan is my guy. Both these guys fit, but I'm leaning Aiden. It's because of his imperfections, his little idiosyncrasies. Coaches love guys they can make better. We've talked about this. There are no finished products in college basketball. I don't care how good an offense we run. Koby Brea is not coming in and shooting better than 49.8% from three. It's not heard of. Do you think he's going to improve and shoot 56% from three or 60%? But Aiden, he has some work to do. He's not as physically imposing, so he won't be able to kind of bully guys on pick and roll. So there's some work to be done on his ability to work within the pick and roll portion of our offense. Don't forget all of the back screening to get slips for Alex Caravan that Cam Spencer did, or eventually for Liam McNeeley if he comes, or definitely for Jalen Stewart for slip screens. Cam did a ton of that, and he was physical with it. But even with his physical shortcomings, much like Cam, Aiden seeks out contact effectively to create room to shoot. And some scouts say this about Aiden. And this is something I think is very, very important in telling as to why coaches want to get their hands on him. When you watch him play, this is a direct quote. When you watch him play, you leave thinking he's capable of so much more. And when I read that, I think they go hard to try to get a commitment from him. 2 years to make him into a potential NBA prospect. I think they go hard to try to get a commitment from him. sell him on that exact fact that they see it too, and show him games against lesser opponents in the WCC where he should have dominated or been able to get any shot he wanted. Why only show up against in the Gonzaga games, they could ask. Are you going to take plays off here when we're beating the out of DePaul and Georgetown next year? Then, when you look at the similarities of the offenses they run, I don't think Bennett's team at St. Mary's is running 12 variations of the same play the way Dan Hurley and Luke Murray focus this year's team to kind of give options, but there won't be a steep learning curve. Over the years, Bennett coached St. Mary's teams have been predicated on a few key tenets. The Gales play an incredibly slow pace. Sound familiar? Ranking 339 or lower in tempo for 8 straight seasons. Doesn't mean they can't speed you up. It's just the tempo of their offense is slow. Very similar to UConn. They consistently have high-level three-point shooting, making 35.5% better from three in 12 of the past 14 seasons. So Aiden's been there for 2. He knows the type of offense that they're running. He slides right in and knows that we're hunting great shots. We're getting quality looks. He'll come into college being recruited out of California, 6'3", 350 pounds. He's listed now around 180. I'd love for him to beef that up a bit without losing his speed. He's crafty. He has a little wiggle. And if you watch highlights, what struck me is his hands on defense. Again, sound familiar. I was afraid Cam Spencer would be picked on on the defensive side of the ball. Boy, was I wrong. You know, there were some times he couldn't hang with people, but I see no real negative with Mahaney being the pick over Brea. I guess you could nitpick the size, that he's 3 inches shorter. But don't get me wrong. If I wake up tomorrow morning and Koby Brea has committed to UConn, or Aiden has said, hey, that was a great visit, but I'm going to go to Creighton or whatever, I'm going to be super happy. But there's something about Aiden and what he's already done, and really he'd be less of a hired gun. So you can sell him on the vision of creating a legacy at UConn for 2 years. You know, rising junior. So I think the choice to develop into a pro under Dan Hurley's system is going to be too great of an opportunity to pass up. But we'll take a look at how Aiden's progress throughout the year, his ups and downs, a little bit after this. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for any winning championship is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the sports you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions may apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Okay. Well, Aiden Mahaney had an interesting year. What kind of year did he have? I think one of the reasons why he's a sought-after transfer portal guy is because there's a lot of meat on the bones. He averaged a shade under 14 points, 13.9, 2.6 rebounds, and 2.6 assists on 38% field goal percentage overall. He was an 81% free throw shooter and 35% from three. We mentioned earlier in the show that I think they look at this kid who hasn't, like, how hasn't this kid been a 40, 50, 90 guy. So for those of you who don't know what that is, 40% from three, 50% from the field overall, and 90% from the free throw line. That's the type of efficiency that Steph Curry has in NBA, and it's very rare to do. Also, there was a point during the year where Cam was on track for that. And he was the only guy in college basketball to be at that level, but also have a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Alex Caravan flirted with that too this season. So from an analytics perspective, teams that focus on good twos and threes, that's the type of player that's kind of like the golden goose, is to have a 40, 50, 90 guy. So if you hear me say that, that's what that means. When we start looking at these games, it's not to get you excited. It's to let you know that Hurley and his staff are probably excited to make Aiden improve on his game. You know, the Xavier game, a common opponent for us, not ideal. Against a faster, quicker group, 2 for 13 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, 7 points. Quite literally 5 days later against Davidson, though, he had 17 points on 6 of 10 shooting. So he's streaky. And I think sometimes you look at the beginning of the season, you're up and down. But as you look in the crux of playing the WCC, it's not the same as playing a full season in the Big Ten like Cam Spencer did. And there's comparable levels of talent in the Big Ten and the Big East overall. But then again, the American isn't exactly a basketball powerhouse, and that's where Tristan Newton was found. And that's where he was playing before he became an all-time Husky. So another trust the process moment in real time there. But if you want a true indicator, look at the Gonzaga games. 23 in a win to secure the regular season title, so that's pretty clutch performance. 20 in a close win earlier in the year. The game his team lost to the Zags, Aiden shot it well from 3, but struggled overall from the field. This tells me, and you can watch it yourself, you can go to the YouTube highlights. His team, he went as he played well. That's how his team did well. He was the engine. Will he be asked to do some of that here and be the guy who's taking the shot at the end of the shot clock? Sure, sometimes, considering he'll be a ball handler. But he's not going to be the primary shot creator or playmaker UConn has, as he was at St. Mary's. So I think Dan Hurley is there looking at his games like the Portland game, salivating, 8 of 13 overall, 7 for 11 from 3, 25 points. That's the type of efficiency that really may look more like 4 for 5 overall, 2 for 3 from 3 at UConn. Because, I didn't look this morning, but I don't think there was a UConn player all year that attempted 11 threes in a game on his own. He may be more of that type of player, but remember, and this just made me think of this really great point. When you read about what Luke Murray does with his team, how he shows them, here are your hot spots. Here's your efficiency level at the top of the key. Here's your efficiency level in the side corner. Adjacent, like on the baseline. Here's your efficiency level from 8 feet. Here's your efficiency level from a 17-foot mid-range jump shot. So if you go back and watch Cam Spencer all year, he was almost hunting those hot spots because he trusted that process. So if Aidan Mahaney is the type of player that you think about filling that role and can understand that processing of information, then he's our guy. Because you really only look at, let's say, the Kansas game. I don't think Aidan Mahaney is. I think he's kind of a hybrid between Cam Spencer and Tristan. So, Tristan against Kansas with some guys that were a little gimpy and didn't have a full complement of his teams. He was 6 of 9 from 3 overall. I think that's the most anyone shot all year in one game is 9. So I don't see the need for him to come in and think he's going to be a volume shooter. And I think he'll take that coaching and realize that, I don't have to shoot from this angle. We can kick the ball around and I can find a better shot 3 passes down the road because of the movement, because of the screening. So if there's an area that we can look at getting him better is sticking his nose in and getting defensive rebounds. I think that's, if you look at, if you're a 6'3", 6'4" guard and you're only averaging 2.6 rebounds a game, that's really poor in my opinion. They have some size at St. Mary's, so it's not like he needed to crash the boards because they're undersized. But I think a player of his caliber should be in that 4 to 5, so double it. 4 to 5 rebounds a game. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring the biggest stories of all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free for the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, we'll look around the portal and the chaos that has been happening over the last 24 hours. Keep you updated after this. Guys, I need you all to listen up for this huge announcement. I have been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the scores, putting all of my heart into it, and super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard it. It's been downloaded for 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on the classic Monopoly game. You can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from the Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent on all of your properties or go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists, taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. I have to say the bank heists are my favorite part. But my favorite part is the leaderboards along with bank heists, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. We've done a lot of transfer portal combat. We've done transfer portal news all day, every day. I mean, it's become a cottage industry for the transfer portal to be spoken about by college basketball fans, and it's coming to an end, guys. We're in the last full week of it, at least with it being open. It closes May 1st, so there'll be a couple of shows next week where the portal is open, so you could get some last-minute entries, which I'm sure there will be. You can obviously commit all through the summer, so it's not going to be as quick of a process, I think, as people look at it and go, well, they're visiting, why can't we get a commit from XYZ player? I think, honestly, this is what I've heard, and I could be wrong on this. NIL money is fluid, and sometimes colleges have, a set budget, but it also gets more sometimes from boosters or businesses. You saw FedEx pledge $25 million over 5 years to Memphis's NIL collectives, right? And their sports in at Memphis. And so who's to say there aren't businesses out of the state of Connecticut who aren't promoting this, as far as a kind of a PR stunt to say, hey, I'm Travelers, I'm giving, $50 million over the next 10 years. I think there's some private donors that do that themselves anyway. Not that quite, but not that much, but that's also part of it too. And that's happening all over the country. There's some allegations into AJ Storr, the now Kansas player who has played for 1,000 teams. He is the who's an NBA player. He's the Jamal Crawford of the college game. Has about 100 different jerseys. I think he played at 4 different high schools too. So some of these guys are really taking advantage of the freedom of movement. I don't know if that's a good thing. That's for, I won't give my opinion on that. But AJ Storr essentially was supposed to commit to Illinois, poor Illinois. And I believe he kind of pitted one against the other. And look, that's what this NIL transfer portal has become. It is, people talk about tampering. I think there's some real tampering potential with St. John's and Rick Pitino. I don't know if you've seen Kadari Richmond is in the portal to kind of bring it back to how it affects UConn. When Kadari Richmond dipped his toe in the transfer portal waters. I was on my way to pick up wings to watch the NFL draft last night. And on the way back, I get an alert on my phone that Kadari Richmond is in the transfer portal. Okay. So I'm like, there's a guy that UConn, if UConn doesn't see ever again, it would be a good day, right? And wish him well. Hopefully he goes to, somewhere. Then I get home, get back into my office, and looks like Rick Pitino in St. John's is the preferred potential landing spot for Kadari Richmond. That just feels, as I think I read Chris Smith's, my friend Chris Smith at Bad Choice Milk on X say, that just feels gross. And that's a great way to put it, because Rick Pitino he's gross. Let's be honest, right? He took Naheem Aleem from us. I won't ever look at that as a genuine play for Naheem. It was to essentially make UConn worse, while not with the best interest at heart for Naheem Aleem. He didn't play a lot at St. John's, and he can argue that he didn't, compete against. This guy won a national championship, was a great part of that team, and his instant offense. He knows how to play defense, because he wouldn't have been on a Dan Hurley team if he didn't. So I digress, because that's a frustrating one for me. But it looks like Rick Pitino is going to get a Kadari Richmond, may get a Norchad or Omir, who just entered the Miami power forward, about 6'8". We played against him in the Final Four. Really good stretch four, feisty. Listen, Rick Pitino's not going away anytime soon. So those two guys team up with an already formidable St. John's team. It's going to be an interesting offseason again. Some names. Let's take a look at where the portal is right now. Names still haven't committed. You have Janelle Davis, obviously. I don't know if you guys heard that story. He was on his way to Michigan. Michigan admissions strikes again. They did not allow him into Michigan because, again, without knowing the specific details, can't speak to why, but apparently Michigan's a pretty tough school to get into, and if you don't have your degree, the transfer portal is a little harder for them to bend those rules. And I think Janelle Davis, I guess, was a few credits short of actually graduating from FAU. So he's transferring, I believe, to Arkansas. I think that's the scuttlebutt. Still a great name out there. Great Osabor, 6'8", 250 center. I think for a lot of programs that could be a coup. He's averaging a 17-10 guy at a small school at Utah State, which got themselves ranked this year in the Mountain West. I really could see him making a big impact. Same with Clifford Amoru. I haven't heard his name called, and I think a lot of these guys, again, they're waiting to the last minute. And I know some of our UConn fans hate to hear this about transfer portal NIL money, but the longer you wait, the more leverage you have, because spots start to grow thin. But then if the team really wants you, that may not be true, but I just feel like if you make a person sweat on whether or not they're going to have your services for the year, that could lead to, all right, we found an extra $200,000. Some of these guys are not going to play in the NBA. Like, that's a perfect example. Great Osabor, 6'8", 250. He's not a high flyer, guys. He's a below the rim guy. He's not playing in the NBA anytime soon. So if that kid's plan is to get the most money out of college basketball, the way RJ Davis is for North Carolina, I mean, he has a COVID year. He's sticking around to make, I don't know, a few $100,000. That's probably what he would have made overseas. Same thing with Armando Bacot. He's gone, but he milked as much NIL money, not just from the collectives, but from the advertisements. I mean, he was all over TV and doing commercials, and good for them. So that's the good part of NIL, is using your name to do commercials, to do endorsement deals, these, sponsored influencers, right? So if you're, if there's a product in Connecticut, and, we talked about this with Tashid Carr, with Ahmad Noel's dad, right? What are some things he's interested in? He mentioned like bowling. He mentioned, so, what the NIL was meant for was essentially if a chain of bowling alleys in Connecticut wanted to put Ahmad's face all over their their billboards, they could do it and they could pay him some money for it. So that's the good part. The nefarious stuff is the tampering, is the pitting one school against the other, because that's pay for play. But it's going to happen no matter what, guys, because I hate to break it to you, but without saying it, every coach in college basketball pre-NIL knew about dirty money, knew about the bag, knew about the bag man that was giving a star player $50,000 here, $100,000 there. Look the other way if they were getting money from an agent. So I hate to say this, but there were no clean programs pre-NIL. There were discreet and the ones who thought they could just get away with it, like our boy at McNeeley State, Will Wade. Probably could have waited a couple years to start talking about a strong ass offer, but the guys with hubris, the guys who think that they're above everything, are the ones who got caught, and the guys who just realized that these kids should make money and just kind of keep their mouth shut are the ones who didn't. So now it's legal, and these kids can reap the benefits from it. I really think we're going to get a commitment from either Mahaney or Brea sooner than we get a commitment from Liam McNeeley. Alex Karaban is coming back. Everything that I've seen from the mock drafts to his evaluations will likely assume that Alex is going to make the right choice, for him, but also I think the wise choice to come back and see if he can improve his draft stock. The only argument against that is, how much can he improve it? I think if he comes back and shows that he can shoot it better against higher caliber teams, I think that's the knock on him, is his shooting percentages drop against the better quad one and tougher teams. So we'll see. But I think that's the prevailing theme, is Alex Karaban will be back. DR will be back. It's filling in those 3 spots with two transfer portals and one more recruit. So obviously the sights are set on one of the 2 shooters, Liam McNeeley, and then maybe a transfer that we haven't heard from yet. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. Early Friday morning, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.